Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing another budget with me where I budget my paycheck for the last day of April. But before we get into that, I just want to have a little story time. If you've seen the title of the video, you may already know what's coming, but I'll give an overview just in case you don't want to stay for the whole budget with me and watch me assign my money in YNAB. This month has been absolutely insane. So there are some things that happened this month that I was prepared for. There are things that happened this month that I did not expect. And there are things that happened this month that I was aware of and I had a plan for, even if I didn't have the money saved. Long story short, I spent over about $6,000 in the course of 7 days. I have completely depleted a lot of my sinking funds. All of the money that I've had assigned to my wish farm, I had to unassign it. So going into April, I was pretty well set for the month. A few months back, we had income tax money, and then I had extra money from work. And so I had used that money to fund some of my sinking funds and to pay off my credit card, one of the credit cards that I was still holding debt on at 0% interest. Well, at the beginning of this month, I had grand plans that everything would just continue as normal. This is spring break for the area that I live in, so I knew that I would be spending some of my sinking funds just on a staycation where we spend time as a family around town, trying new restaurants, going out to eat, doing a lot of fun day activities. And so I knew I would spend some money there. I was also aware that my car insurance premium would be due this month. And I was going to attempt to pay the full amount up front and then kind of pay myself back each month on the back end, because that would save me about $200, $300 a month. And then life happened. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but I will say that you can ignore all the plans from the last budget with me, where not only had I setting aside money for an extra car payment and was doing like payoff calculations to see how I could pay my car off, because that is no longer the plan. Life hit hard, and the short version of the story is that I no longer have a car, and it was unexpected. And so right now I'm still in the midst of that chaos. And so I won't be talking about it too much just because I'm still dealing with the mental and the emotion of it all, right? It was very unexpected. Everybody is safe, but all of my plans are kind of out the window right now. So, with that being said, if you have any questions about anything, you can ask them below. I will kind of go over where I took the money from. So, a lot of my snooze categories are places where I've had to move money. These monthly accounts for family fun, household durables. Um, I've moved whatever I could. Like this probably had $1 and some change in it. All of my money for my car taxes, my car maintenance. I've taken money out of my home maintenance fund, and then also the gifts, Thanksgiving and Christmas sinking funds. I've taken as much money as I could out of these, as well as anything that's underfunded. And some of these are still underfunded. So I've just taken money out of a bunch of different categories so I could come up with a good bit of money in a short period of time. So, like I mentioned, spring break was prepared for. The thing that happened with my car was not planned. And so that has had a good amount of money out of the different categories. And then there's something else. Oh, my car insurance. And so I had set aside, or was initially planning to pay about $1,400. That changed to $2,400. And so I had to take money from a bunch of different places to be able to pay the premium in advance. It's still a cost savings if I pay it in advance versus paying it as monthly installments. And so I still continue to do that, even though it like physically pained me to have to whittle all my balances down to almost nothing. And so, that's life. And so with this paycheck, what I'll be doing a lot is just trying to reset. Luckily, with YNAB, which is the software that I'm using and YNAB stands for You Need a Budget. Luckily, with this software, it's month to month. So as the calendar flips over to May 1st, I will hopefully have somewhat of a clean slate. And although the bills and the expenses aren't going anywhere, although the money is not going to come back for my sinking funds, at least like mentally, I can kind of have a little bit of relief and not see these large negative amounts in my budget as we roll over to the next month. So, with that being said, let's get started. So, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Normally, it's not as much news at the beginning. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you for subscribing. I'm glad to have you here. We are budgeting my paycheck, as I mentioned earlier, for the end of April. This paycheck is $2,534.95. If you are new here, I am a 40-something mom of two. I have two children. My son is 21. My daughter is 16. I am married, so we are a dual income household. However, my husband and I do not combine our finances. It just works better for us to keep everything separate. We divide the bills based on what percentage of income we bring into the household. When I budget in YNAB, I am budgeting my paycheck and my portion of the household expenses that I pay or I have auto drafted from my accounts. If you have any questions about how we do that or how we did that, just let me know. I know some couples share finances, some don't. Personal finance is personal, so you do you, boo. All right, the first thing I'm going to cover is overspending. I still have some overspending and reimbursements, and I wasn't sure where to take that money from, so I'm just going to take it from ready to assign. And then also, because I've had a very challenging few weeks, I decided to treat myself. There's no other word for it. Sometimes I spend money to make me happy and to not feel the things. And so I did get a manicure and a pedicure, and I got my eyebrows cleaned up. So we're just going to pay for that. And that takes care of all the overspending. So now I'm just going to go down and see what's left to fund for April. It shouldn't be much because today is the 29th and we only have one more day left in the month. Anything that is left can go towards next month. I do want to look at my hobbies category because I have 9708 left, and I had a pay in for plan that was I thought was going to be taken out on the 30th, but I got an email notification saying it's not coming out till May the 2nd. And so I just want to make sure this target is refill up to so that I don't have to manually. Yeah, so this is set up another. So if there's overfunding here, I'm just going to reduce it. So that's money I can use for next month. And that money just moves back to my ready to assign. If my YNAB looks a little different from yours, I do have the YNAB toolkit installed. It's this little web extension here. It added the days of buffering, and then I don't remember what setting it was, but they also have a setting where you can see it will put in red where you've assigned more than your target. And typically I assign more than my target when I am overspending or have overspent on something. Ignore this number here because it's been a spending month, but where you have assigned more money than your target. And so that kind of is an indicator for me of areas where I've overspent more than I needed to. I'm just going to go down the list and see what's left to fund. So it looks like we're covered for groceries, fees, covered overspending for reimbursements. All my bills for April are paid, but we probably need to go to May. And these are all subscriptions. Credit card should be covered now that I've covered the overfunding. Sinking funds are looking sad. I'm not going to cover anything that has been snoozed. I just can't be bothered. So it looks like everything is covered for April. So I'm just going to double check to see if anything's overfunded and then anything's underfunded. And it looks like we're good to go. Now, I mentioned we're going to go forward to May. One thing I will say about May, I mentioned earlier in the video that I spent way more than I intended and basically emptied out my sinking funds for April. Like, not just my sinking funds for April, I mean my sinking funds for the whole year. And also in doing that, I did have about $1,000 or so assigned ahead in May allocated to some bills, and I unassigned all that money just because I needed it to cover some stuff. So if you're ever curious and you ever have money assigned in a future month and you need it for some reason now, what you can do in the software is you can just select this category button, and there is an option, reset assigned amounts to zero. You select that option, and any money that you have assigned in that month will go back ready to assign. So you have that money available to move around. And so that's what I had to do. All right, so enough of sad news. I'm going to go through the budget kind of quickly because I spent some time early on yapping. So I'm going to fund half of all of these. These are, day-to-day expenses that I normally need money for. And I usually fund half each paycheck because I only get paid twice a month. I get paid on the 15th and the last day of the month. Hobbies is showing underfunded because I probably have some pay in forward plans that are coming out that haven't been deducted yet. For home, I am going to fund the first 2 weeks. These are my grocery categories. These categories with the date. I'm going to fund the first 2 weeks of the month. So that's half of the groceries. I am going to fund half of household consumables and half of kids. I guess I can fund half of these two as well. It's not much of a difference. So, in the low half and the high half. Stuff I forgot to budget, I am going to fund half of this because I always end up spending it and moving money elsewhere. And then got about $1,700 left. I'm going to hide this car extra payment category. I don't know. I feel some type of way about having to hide this category, but I'm going to hide it. And it just is what it is. I'm going to fund these bills because they come out at the beginning of the month. I don't get paid again until May 15th. I'm going to fund half of my car payment. I may not have to make any more car payments going forward. It just depends on whatever decision is made on my car. But until that's decided, I've got to, I've got to pay something on it, or I would rather have it just in case. So I'm also going to fund the water bill. I've already paid my insurance premium for the next 6 months. It won't be due again until October, but I want to have the money saved for October in advance. So I am going to I may fund half of that, but I need to go back and look. Dominion Energy is my light company, and I thought I just saw an email about them, the payment being successful, which means that payment is for, yeah, this is for 401. That payment is for 51. So I need to make sure this is funded. Oop, and I should have funded the whole thing. And then I'm just going to fund half for the upcoming car insurance. And so next paycheck for bills, I'll just need to fund these three, which will be $635. And I think that's okay. Hulu, New York Times, YouTube TV. I think they come out at the end of the month, and I think they already have been, yeah, they've been paid for April. That's the 22nd. Let me change this date. And then YouTube TV is the 28th. And so I think this one just cleared late because I was in one of my credit cards that I had a zero balance on. I just happened to go in the portal just to decide whether I was closing it or not. And they had a cashback reward for 20% off your YouTube TV if you got it on your credit card. And so I switched my YouTube TV from one credit card to another credit card just so I can get that discount. So these have already been covered for April. I don't need to put anything in here for May, so I'm not. I'm going to fund my Amazon. My Amazon and my YNAB were two of the sinking funds that were previously fully funded that I had to take money from. So I am now in the process of rebuilding my credit cards. These are just what's available for payment. So everything that happened last month, even though I pulled the money from sinking funds to cover things on YNAB, a lot of those were put on my credit card, and I just have to pay them when the bill comes. So I normally don't have to make a credit card payment this high. My monthly bills usually average around, I don't know, about $4,000. I'm gonna have to pay that when the bill comes, and that's gonna hurt. All right, enough negativity. I'm gonna go and just check as many sinking funds as possible to see how close I can get to this 806. I do want to fund, I took money out of Mother's Day, I think, and I do want to fund that because that is in the month of May. So 755. Let's just close this little wish farm. 755, that's going to leave me $50. I think I may be able to 5093. So I can't fully fund anything. Would I rather do another sinking fund, or would I rather put more money here? Hmm. 5093. My concern about putting money, I really hesitate to put money in household consumables and household durables, because if I see the money there, if I fund it early in the month, I'm more likely to spend it early in the month versus waiting and using half at the beginning of the month and half at the end of the month. So I think I'm going to go down here, and I am just going to assign the extra 5093 to medical to make sure that is covered. That is my whole paycheck. It's all gone. The other thing that YNAB toolkit, I believe this is a toolkit feature and not a standard YNAB feature, but it shows how much I have left needed for targets, which is the same amount here as the underfunded. So my next paycheck should be able to cover the remaining bills for the month. I talked in my top 5 common YNAB mistakes video about having a budget template, and I do try to keep my YNAB targets as close to my paycheck as possible so that I don't feel bad about not being able to fund everything. It just, for me, helps get rid of the guilt about spending and where I spend my money. So like these have targets on it, but they're future. The dates for these all say eventually or needed for spending, and they don't have a specific date tied to it. And so that just helps make sure that I don't feel obligated to fund these, but I can fund them when I have extra money. That is all for the last budget with me for the end of the month. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.